The war between dwarves and orcs raged for centuries, a bitter feud that utterly consumed the Misty Mountains in a conflagration of hatred and death. The climax of this brutal conflict came at the Battle of Dimral Dale, fought beneath the east gate of Moria. It was a titanic clash of arms, and tens of thousands of dwarves and orcs perished in the fighting. At its conclusion, Dane Ironfoot, a young dwarf of 32 who would later ascend to the throne of Erebor, beheaded Azog the Pale Orc, ending the war. Or so he thought. Those dwarves who fell at the Dimral Dale were ever known afterwards as burned dwarfs, for the sons of Durin's casualties were beyond the count of grief, and so many lay dead and dying that instead of being given customary underground burials, great funeral pyres were constructed and the bodies immolated. After the battle, the great dwarven houses returned home, for they simply did not have the power to confront the Balrog that lay within the depths of Khazad-dûm. The sons of Durin bade their time, recuperating their losses and waiting for the chance to reclaim their birthright. That time has come. What nameless horrors await Durin's folk, deep within the Mines of Moria? Hello my friends, I am IndieProd and welcome back to Third Age Reforged, a multiplayer-focused standalone submod slated to be released sometime in the next few months. This is the Reclamation of Moria, and I can objectively say, without exaggeration, that this is the best and closest battle for Moria on YouTube. This battle is fought on a scale rarely seen in Total War. We've got 6,000 Sons of Durin and 16,000 Orcs and Goblins of the Misty Mountains on the field doing their best to prevent Balin and his people from taking back the depths of Khazad-dûm. This will be a 3-stage siege. First in open conflict on the valley floor and at the gates of Moria, then for the upper halls, then should the dwarves make it that far, and that's no guarantee, a grind for the throne hall itself. But first things first, we have to take the gate, which is no easy feat when you've got 10,000 screaming goblins pouring from the mountainside. We've got wargs, we've got heavy goblin infantry, heavy goblin halberds, snow trolls, cave trolls. Yes, they have many cave trolls, and the Vault Warden phalanx and the Iron Guard shield walls will need to hold strong in the front, but mostly there's going to be a lot of meat shields running into our spear walls from the beginning. As with most of these Third Age scenarios, you're going to be seeing a lot of the meat shield tactics, the kind of crappy troops getting thrown in first against the elite troops, to wear them down, kind of get them tired, and then send in the more elite shock troops like the Orc Mountain Berserkers and the Snow Trolls, Cave Trolls, a little bit later on. So we are on the valley floor right now, and it's such an epic sight, seeing all those goblins pour out of the mountain, and they will be engaging us from the front, and have wargs and some of the more elite troops, just a handful of them, flanking around trying to get behind and get into the squishy targets behind our shield wall. The iron crossbows would be a great target for those wargs if they can somehow manage to break up the dwarf boxes. Here comes the first assault. Tons of Snagas, tons of underground goblins, and basically a bunch of meat shields that are going to get slaughtered by the thousands. And I don't blame them for not wanting to charge in from the beginning, because that is not a fun engagement, dealing with the Sons of Durin and their heavy armor from the beginning. Sin of the Dark Cloud and Miles Davis are my allies. Sin is actually on my left flank. I am playing right here, and on my right flank, this is Miles Davis's army. You can see some Orc Mountain Berserkers and a bunch of goblins streaming down from this side, trying to get around the flank. And the iron crossbows are firing in. But for the moment, I am taking the vast majority of the heat in the center, and Sin is up in the corner, which I'll show his army in a little bit. He will not be allowed to engage until 5 minutes have passed, and then he'll be able to start moving. He has the more elite troops on the field. Me and Miles have more mid-tier dwarf armies, but mid-tier dwarf armies can go toe-to-toe with pretty much thousands and thousands and thousands of goblins. So remember that this is a multiplayer-focused submod, so it has been rebalanced. Lots of changes and lots of new units, many of them from DAC with permission from Eric here and the Divide and Conquer submod team. But what really sets Reforged apart is the sheer amount of custom scenarios and multiplayer maps being built in by Sin of the Dark Cloud and KuroGuroChan, and of course, the legend Paladin Bob. So once it comes out, you will be able to replicate these amazing custom scenarios for yourself. So definitely look forward to that. But stuff has hit the fan in this battle already, only a few minutes in, and the Goblin Scum are into melee. We've actually just routed a couple of wargs off the field. They routed out the back lines, tried to get through to our Iron Crossbowmen, but we shut them down, and now some Goblin infantry have pulled through and are taking some throwing axes from the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers to the face. Axes to the face. And they are going to drop very quickly. What you're going to notice from these goblins at the start is that all of these troops are very low armor and will get shredded by the hundreds in seconds, but they have a lot of skirmish fire support and just overwhelming numbers. So while we should be able to beat back this first wave of goblins and move up to the gate afterwards, we are going to take quite a bit of damage from the ridiculous amount of skirmishers and wargs they have on this lower part of the siege. More goblin infantry coming in from the flank, trying to attack those Iron Guards. You do not want to be engaging Iron Guard from the front. Look at that devastating, scary shield wall that they get into, and with those high armor values and ridiculous melee stats, they're going to do crap loads of damage if you try to charge them from the front. But here comes Sin of the Dark Cloud to save us. Now, Dwarves, not really known for their mobility, of course, so it'll be a while before he actually enters melee combat. We've got Hammers of Gundabad, we've got Iron Crossbowmen, Blacklock Engineers, and of course, Balin himself, Balin's Guard, clad, completely decked out in mithril armor. We've got the Sons of Durin with their two-handed warhammers. Some seriously heavy weaponry on the field today, and hopefully Sin can get into melee soon, roll the goblins flank, and then we can push on to the gate. But they are not making it easy for us. Look at these wargs who have gotten into the back lines of Miles Davis's army, just causing tons of havoc, cycle charging. But the great thing about having multiple units of iron crossbows is that something like a warg, which typically doesn't have much HP or armor, is going to be running around and just get slaughtered from the many volleys from the different angles from those iron crossbows. So we'll be able to shoot them to pieces as they pull through, but the mountain berserkers are a different story. They can do a lot of damage, and you can see already, only a few minutes into the battle, so many dead on the field. I really love the Orc Mountain Berserkers models. They've got skulls on their head, and they're kind of like a druid unit for the Orcs. They'll chant, and I believe they can buff up melee attack of all units in an AoE if you give them time to chant. So that might have been only for a custom scenario, but I think it might have been this one, actually. I think they did get a druid war chant that we might see a little bit later on in this battle. Look at the utter devastation. Look at how many goblins are already dead. Talk about fodder. 5 minutes in and there are already thousands of them dead on the field. But of course, they haven't been sending us the elite troops yet. Those will be back inside the keep, inside Moria, defending the depths and the mines of Khazad-dûm. But we've mostly gotten rid of a lot of the wargs too. We've been focusing them down with our skirmishers, and there's actually probably a lot of friendly fire coming in from the goblin archers as well. Probably doing more damage to themselves than they are to us. But of course, killing one dwarf is a good trade for losing like 10 goblins right now, considering how many crap troops they have on the field. Warg's coming in from the flank. Big charge into the flank of the Vault Wardens, and I'm going to try to back up with my halberdiers. We're moving up very slowly in shield wall, or phalanx, I should say. And if I can get my hands on those wargs, they should die, but they've been worn down by our skirmish fire. And the first waves have been mostly beaten back. There are going to be some units we still have to kill. Just a ridiculous amount of dead already, and I will commit my Axemen of Erebor to start slaying stuff in melee. More wargs routing off the field. Those will be gone soon. And then we can turn our attentions to the gate themselves. Miles has already cleaned up on his side, but I did have, like I said, the majority of the heat thrown my way. So I think I've already got 3,000, 4,000 kills, or close to that. Maybe more like 2,500 kills. But our Axemen of Erebor are still in melee, still dealing with the underground goblins, and shredding them to pieces. I feel so bad for them. Imagine being that first wave of goblins into the face of a bunch of angry dwarves, clad in mithril and heavy armor, and axes that can just cut through your shield like butter. Like, that's just not a fun engagement for them at all. And soon there will be a mass rout back to Moria itself. The goblin fodder did not seem to last very long. Didn't really expect it to. Of course, it's the lowest tier infantry you can pretty much get in 3rd Age. So they died by the thousands. And with the Hammers of Gundabad from Sin of the Dark Cloud slamming into their flank, the rest of them should go running. Now remember, I don't want to overhype it, but I kind of have to. It's not overhyping though. This is literally the closest Third Age battle I've ever seen, especially when you consider the sheer amount of troops on the field. So I'm not going to spoil it. I'm just going to say that the ending is super duper worth sticking around for. So that's all I'm going to say. We're going to, again, start pushing through the remnants of these Orcs of the Misty Mountains, and Sin is making his move up the hill towards the gate of Moria. And we can get a good look at the defense they've set up there. This will be kind of stage 1.5 of the battle. We've got heavy goblins, heavy goblin halberds, orc mountain berserkers, goblin archers up top, heavy goblin crossbows, and cave trolls. Lots and lots of cave trolls to deal with. So this will be a serious challenge for the dwarves to cut through. Look at all those cave trolls. Those things are going to be absolute monsters in melee. And look at the fantastic line of sight those mountain orc archers and heavy goblin archers will have as we move up. So lots and lots of killing to do before we even get inside the settlement. And then if you look at the minimap, you can see how much they still have. But oh my god. Just utter devastation. So many dead already. And we're just cleaning up the last few goblin infantry that are surrounded and being utterly dismantled by our spear walls. Couple tactics that are going to be really, really important for this one. You've seen that our opponents are doing the wave tactics, sending in the crap troops first to die, just for the more cinematic side of things, and because they're really not going to be very useful in the choke points. They're just going to kind of take up space, and honestly, they're just trying to wear us down. So what you'll see goblin troops do, or Orcs of the Misty Mountain players in general, is send in the real crappy stuff first, just to get your stamina down, kind of wear down your elites just a little bit, get them tired, and then the heavy hitters will come a little bit later. For us, we need to make sure that we save our ammunition and conserve it for the late game, because we really need our throwing axes to kill the trolls quickly before they do too much damage, and we really need our iron crossbows to shut down wargs and shut down the heavily armored Black Mountain Orcs and the heavy goblin infantry that we'll be fighting later on in the battle. You can see the Sons of Doran marching up the mountain right now. They're going to be a very useful unit. Don't want to commit them too early, especially the unshielded units, the ones that have a little bit lower armor values and don't have the missile block chances. You definitely want to let them kind of sit back and engage a little bit later on so they don't get too tired, and definitely so they don't get ripped apart by skirmishers. We're going to cut right here and go right back into the battle a little bit later on, because here, I mean, we're just marching up the mountain and it takes a while because the dwarves are very, very slow, as I'm sure you're all aware. So this is going to be the second part of our assault. Now, Sin has an all-elite army, so he can afford to send in some of the unshielded troops first. These are a kind of elite unit, the Hammers of Gundabad. They're going to do a lot of damage in melee, so he'll send them in first, but he did a great job of shielding himself from the archer fire, keeping them close to the cliff. You can see they're kind of hugging it right now, and they're coming around the corner and will charge directly into some heavy goblin infantry. And this is where they thrive, deep in the scrum, deep in melee combat, and we'll see how those two-handed warhammers do them justice. And I bet they're going to be able to get a lot of kills here, kind of engaging on the flank of the heavy goblin infantry. And now the rest of our forces are moving up. Here comes my stuff. We've got the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers, eager to reclaim the Mines of Moria and their lost homeland. And we've got Dwarf Nobles. We've got the Axemen of Erebor, who have an amazing model on them. They look exactly like the stuff from The Hobbit. And I think in general, this whole remodel for the dwarves just looks so good. Looks exactly like the Hobbit movies, and I think it is an improvement over the original Third Age models, which were amazing in and of themselves, but I think these definitely look better. Great charge coming in into the front of the heavy goblin infantry, and with those cleaving axes, I'm going to start trying to wear them down and cut through them so I can get at the soft, squishy center of those Orc Mountain Berserkers. That's not the engagement the Orc Mountain Berserkers want to be in. They don't have the ability to get a charge bonus off unless they pull them back. If they leave them in there, they're just going to get torn to shreds by my Axemen of Erebor. But here come the Cave Trolls directly into the Hammers of Gundabad, and that is the engagement they want to be in. Those heavy shock monster units are going to be able to do a lot of damage to our left flank. And the heavy goblin archers up top, providing some support and firing into the Vault Wardens, who do not have a shield, so they will not be able to block those arrows very easily. Very nice targeting from our opponents. As a Orcs and Goblins player, definitely want to make sure you shoot at those lower armor units, the ones without shields, because you can do so much damage over time. The Vault Wardens are a great target. Again, Dwarves in general, really high armor values, but if you don't have a shield, the shield block chance is going to be kind of hard to use, right? So definitely a good target there. And Miles Davis is getting ready to move up as well. And look at this epic sweeping shot of the battlefield outside the gates of Moria. This is similar to what you'd see in a movie. This doesn't even feel like a video game. This is actually insane how many troops there are on the field. And even with the 5,000 or 6,000 that have already died, we've still got 4, 5, 6,000 more outside here, and then even more inside the settlement. So the multiple stages of this siege are going to set up for something truly epic. Oh, look at all that skirmish fire coming in from the heavy goblin skirmishers and my Khazad-dûm reclaimers. These are going to be on the anti-cave troll duty. They're getting stun locked right now by all that arrow fire, so it's a good move to target the Khazad-dûm reclaimers as well. But the throwing axes and javelins are such a great tool to have for something like a cave troll, who if you just try to target them in melee combat, you're going to end up losing a lot of troops. So definitely having that range support to fire in, get those throwing axes, and just kind of stab them in the face from range is going to help a lot. Orc fellers charging into melee now to support the Orc Mountain Berserkers. And we are deep into melee combat. Axemen of Erebor leading the charge. Sons of Durin also moving up. And our crossbowmen in the back. I'm not sure we want to start shooting into these troops yet, because they're still not the elite stuff. I think saving our ammunition for the Black Mountain Orcs later on will be really important. Iron crossbows and Blacklock engineers do have a ton of ammunition, but we can't really fire into this blob without friendly firing, and we don't have many lines of sight to just fire directly into the troops. Again, I talked about it in the last battle, being able to fire over and kind of arc your shots really hurts the effectiveness of something like a crossbow. So it's nice to be able to fire directly into a unit, and it's going to be hard to do it right now, so saving our ammunition might be good. Oh, epic shots coming in from the flank. Black Mountain Orcs into combat. They'd be a good target if we could shoot into them. And here comes Miles Davis's phalanxes to support the right flank. Lots of goblin infantry charging in from this flank as well. If they can get around behind the spear wall, that could be very dangerous to our right flank. So we'll see what they decide to do. And just a handful, look at that, only a handful of these Vault Wardens left alive. Walking into melee, trying to survive against overwhelming numbers. And we'll see if they're going to be able to. With some range support, they might be able to. Here come the halberdiers. Dwarf halberds looking super badass as usual. And this should be a good engagement for them. In a very deep formation. And those armor-piercing weapons should do a number on these goblin infantry. Watch them go to work for a little bit here. And this is why I play 3rd Age, man. Stuff like this. It's just... well, I mean, it's why I played Total War in general. But 3rd Age has a sense of scale that I don't think other mods match yet. When we start getting custom scenarios for something like Beginning of the End Times, which apparently Sin is planning on doing, so I'm very much looking forward to that. But just the sheer scale of combat and the epicness that comes with a 3rd Age mod in general, seeing the forces of good and evil struggle like this, it just gets me every time. I really wish that Lord of the Rings music wasn't copyrighted, because I would love just blasting that right now. It really sets the mood super well. But I mean, even without it, the whole thing is such a great experience. It's so much fun, and I can't wait till you guys get your hands on the mod, because it's just gonna make the whole multiplayer community come together even more and make for some even more amazing scenarios like this one. So it's definitely something very special. It just gets me every single time. And the shield walls of the dwarves inexorably pushing through, pushing back the tides of, well, I was about to say chaos, too much Warhammer, the tides of Sauron and the Orcs of the Misty Mountains and all the evilness that is in this world. It just looks amazing. Now, of course, I much prefer having a faction like the Elves or Dale or even Gondor, having a full roster, having cavalry is a really nice thing. I love Dwarves. They look amazing in this mod, but at the moment they don't have cavalry yet. And apparently, I've heard they're going to be getting goat cav, which will be really interesting. Some people won't like that because it's not from the lore, and I don't think that it ever showed up in any of Tolkien's writings, writing a boar like Dane does in the movie, or having an entire contingent of goat cavalry, because that's more of like a World of Warcraft invention. But it is in the movie. It kind of does fit their aesthetic. It kind of does make sense. They are a mountain people, so domesticating goats kind of does make sense. Turning them into weapons of war, not the worst idea, and let's be honest, they look badass in the movie. So it'll be interesting to see if that actually ends up happening. I won't mind it, but getting some mobility for the dwarves certainly not going to be a bad thing. As my Khazad-dûm Reclaimers managed to pull through the line, the first breakthrough has occurred, and with their two-handed axes, will charge and start eviscerating, decapitating, and dismembering these goblin archers in the back. And those war axes are going to make them very sad. Trips them up, slam the axe down, slam it down again. That's how we do it. Sons of Durin carrying the day right now. So we seem to be doing pretty well. Every engagement we've had so far, we are pushing through the enemy forces, slicing them up. But remember that the elites are all inside, and I have not shown you what they have in store for us inside yet. I gave you a bit of a hint earlier on at the beginning of the battle, but there are a lot of scary troops waiting for us. So we will be able to take the outside of the gate. Of course, it would be a pretty boring scenario if we weren't able to. And as you can tell from the length of this replay, it also goes for a very long time. So we'll be grinding it out in melee for a while, as you would expect. And I'm sure you wouldn't want anything less, especially those of you subbed to Pixelated Apollo, who seem to love those incredibly long battles. So many of you guys who watch my Total War Warhammer games as well love the longer battles. Hour 15 minutes, maybe a little bit too long, but believe me, it's not easy to commentate. Commentating something like that is not easy whatsoever, but I'm gonna do my best here. So we have cleared up the vast majority of the troops outside, and just get a good look of the battlefield. Look at all the dead. Oh, it really does remind me of Azanul Bazaar. I think that's the right pronunciation. That's why I said Dirmal Dale earlier. There are many different names for it, but it just reminds me of that. Like, this entire aesthetic, the entire outside of Moria reminds me exactly of that scene in The Hobbit where you see the outcome of Dirmal Dale. It's a pretty crazy scene, and it's pretty crazy in Third Age as well. Scale is just massive. So we are cleaning up the last remaining troops, and pretty soon we will push on. So let's take a look at what we've got inside waiting for us. We've got a scary looking ambush, Black Mountain Orcs at the edge of the bridge. We've got cave trolls on both sides ready to pancake any dwarves who run through. We've got goblin halberds with armor piercing. So many elite Orcs in the Misty Mountain troops, and do remember that the elite troops have gotten significant buffs from vanilla Third Age, so they will be able to go toe-to-toe with dwarves. They may not necessarily win in a one-on-one fight, but they also outnumber us substantially at this point, and they are a lot better than they were in vanilla Third Age. So we'll get a good look at the crevasses and nooks and crannies throughout Moria, and as we go up the stairs here, we start entering the throne rooms. And here we have Bolg's champions. Bolg, yes, Bolg with a hard G. I think that's, again, the pronunciation. He is going to be on some scary looking wargs that will rip stuff up in melee. We've got goblin pikes. We've got Orcs of the Misty Mountain pikes. And then in the back here, the throne room itself, where the quote-unquote capture point is. There is actually no capture point, but if we go down the backside here, the bridge of Khazad-dûm itself, and the entrance that you normally see, the fights for Moria usually come from that side. So we're actually attacking from the other side here, and I think that made for a much more open, much more epic scale of battle at the beginning of this. So we have so many more troops to cut through, and pretty soon here we will go through the gate and begin engaging the next wave of troops here at the upper halls of Khazad-dûm. And after a short rest, the Sons of Durin are on the march again. We are on the warpath. And who would you have leading the charge other than the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers themselves? First into the breach. First to engage those cave trolls and all the horrors, the nameless horrors that await them deep in the Mines of Moria. So, in hindsight, in retrospect, probably not the best that our axe throwers were in first, unless they were out of ammunition. I'm not sure if they were. They might have been out of their axe throwing and ammunition. And I guess they weren't technically the first to engage the cave trolls, because there were a couple of Vault Wardens that got smacked in the face by those heavy shock troops. But the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers will go in, and we'll see in a second if they start throwing their axes or if they just run into melee. If they run into melee, then you know they are out of ammunition, but they will do work in combat for us, and we will need some of our more elite troops to start creating that beachhead. This is where we want Sin. Oh, they do have some ammo here. So we're going to get some throws into the cave trolls. A full volley, actually, which is very important. They can do a lot of HP damage. Like I said, javelins and axe throwers, besides siege equipment, are your best options against something like a cave troll that has multiple HP. Just a ton of armor piercing and missile damage from those short-range weapons like that. We've got the guards of Khazad-dûm as well. They are some of the most elite troops in the Dwarven roster, some of the tankiest, most survivable, and powerful in melee. So they will be able to create a very nice beachhead for us to continue launching our assault. And even against cave trolls, even against these elite goblin halberds, they will be able to rip them up. And that, it really helps when you're clad head to toe in mithril armor. That will keep you in the fight for a very long time. And they've always been one of my favorite units in 3rd Age because of those, I guess, lion masks. I don't know what the actual lore reasoning is behind the mask they wear. It might just be because they look badass. That's probably it. But they are definitely a very scary troop, and if I was on the Orcs and Goblins side of things, I would not be enjoying engaging that from the front. So Hammers of Gundabad and the Vault Wardens pushing deep into melee, and the unending surge of the Dwarves, the Sons of Durin, continuing to push through, continuing to slaughter hundreds upon hundreds of goblins. But we still have so much work to do. First, we have to get across this bridge under withering skirmish fire. You can see those goblin crossbows from above. Heavy goblin crossbows with a lot of armor piercing firing in from the front. But once we get a little bit further on, they'll be able to start getting some flanking and rear shots off, which will be a very important part of the battle. But we'll explain that as it happens. We should be able to push past this first group of infantry, though. They're, again, using the wave tactics. They're just committing some of their troops. They could have committed everything into this room right now, but one important thing about these scenarios, guys, and I've seen it a couple times in the comment sections, people saying, like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Well, some of the suggestions I've seen would really make for incredibly boring scenarios that wouldn't be fun to watch at all, so I'm really not sure why even suggest it. Like, for example, I've seen a couple, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody here, but I've just seen a couple suggestions like, why don't they just not attack and then kill the people when they come in later on? Like, that wouldn't make for an interesting scenario if you're sitting around not doing anything for 15 minutes. Just like in this battle, if they committed everything to this gate right here, sure, we'd have a big, epic, grinded out fest, but there wouldn't be much to commentate. There wouldn't be a consecutive fallback points that would make sieges so much more interesting. And if you watch Oakley's or my sieges in general, you know that the most interesting siege battles are always when you commit part of your defense to the walls, part of your defense to the streets, and then part of it to the last couple fallback points and continuously retreat. If you just commit everything to the gate at the beginning, you just get this really big slugfest that isn't that interesting after the first 5 or 10 minutes, and there's no tactics that evolve throughout the battle. So we do things in these scenarios to make them more interesting, but at the same time, we do it to make it more fun to watch as well. As we look at those berserkers making those hilarious sounds. I think that's the Aztec chant from the Americas campaign, but it sounds really goofy on those orc berserkers, but I think that is buffing up the melee attack of all units in this room right now, or at least that are close by. So we want to shut those down pretty early. We do have iron crossbows still with a lot of ammunition left, so they might be a good target to shoot just because they're so low armor. Get a nice little overhead eagle's eye view of the battlefield. camera work can be a little bit wonky in Moria, but that's actually pretty nice. You get a nice little view of all the torchlight and the kind of U shape, the horseshoe shape that our dwarves have created by pushing back all of the enemies. And for many of these dwarves, this is going to be the first time they've stepped foot inside the halls of Moria in their lifetime. And remember that it's not just about winning this battle, it's not just about killing all the goblins inside. We also need to have the strength to take on Durin's Bane afterwards, the effing huge Balrog of Morgoth that resides beneath the bridge of Khazad-dûm. If they don't have enough manpower or dwarf power after this fight to deal with the Balrog, it's all going to be for naught. And that's why in the lore they decided not to go in after the Battle of Dimril Dale. They said, hey, sure, we just killed a bunch of orcs. Sure, we might have put the nail in the coffin for the orcs of the Misty Mountains and prevented them from ever becoming a strong force again. Although, of course, in this scenario, they're very strong considering there are 16,000 of them on the field. But if we don't have enough troops to actually go in and take that thing out, then probably we shouldn't go in. And ultimately, that's what they decided. They said, we can't go in and take back our homeland. Because I actually don't think they even knew that it was a Balrog. They just knew that something very dark and scary was inside. Maybe Dane Ironfoot saw the Balrog. I can't remember. Someone can correct me on that lore. But either way, they said we can't take back our homeland. So they all went back home. And so this is the entire point of the scenario. We're coming back to reclaim it and hopefully have the dwarf power afterwards, after dealing with the orcs and goblins, to deal with the Balrog. Now, unfortunately, there is no Balrog in this scenario because they cause crashes, apparently, which I didn't actually know. But, we are not going to be able to fight that. But there are still some very scary troops up above. And so this next wave of engagement is about to occur. The crossbows are going to be able to fire from above, which is going to be the scariest thing for the dwarves. You see them unleashing their fire now, and that's from the front. But these are unshielded troops, the Sons of Durin taking those shots, and the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers taking a bunch of shots, and the Heavy Goblin Halberds and the Black Mountain Orcs have made a very powerful shield wall here, where they'll be able to defend against the Sons of Durin's charge. So the Halberds will poke through the middle of the Black Mountain Orcs formation, and then they will be able to fight with their swords. So this is a very potent combination. Very good tactic. I'm not sure which player is doing it right now. It might be KuroGuroChan. He is doing something that's very, very strong. When you're able to combine a regular sword infantry unit with a halberd or pike unit that can poke through the sword's formation, it just makes for a very potent combination that's very hard to break through. And of course, with the overwatch from those goblin crossbows firing in and just eviscerating our dwarves from the flank, that is going to do so much damage to our troops. Khazad-dûm Reclaimers on this side are engaging now. First one's into melee, some of them getting beheaded and slammed into the ground by those nasty looking Uruk weapons. And this is going to be a tough fight, even for dwarves. We're all tired now, and that is probably the biggest problem with the engagement so far. All of our troops are going to be tired. They've been fighting since the beginning of the battle, but now a lot of the elite troops for the Orcs of the Misty Mountains are getting committed for the first time. And this is where the tactics, the wave tactics that our opponents have been employing so far, work very, very well. You wear down your opponent, you grind them down, and over time they get tired, and as they enter melee, they start losing to units that they would normally be able to crush in melee, but they're exhausted, so they lose a lot of their melee effectiveness. And those heavy goblin crossbows are in such a brutal position right now, able to fire down while our crossbows and Black Luck Engineers cannot fire up into them. You can see some of those arrows were just hitting the cliff instead of actually hitting them. Goblin infantry coming out of the crevasses deep in the depths of Moria, and now we are still pushing through, but with that crossbow fire coming from above, so much damage being done to our infantry, and Sin is seriously taking a lot of damage over on that side. Vault Wardens and the reserves of our troops are moving across the bridge now. We've got the Dragon Slayers of Ered Mithrin and our Dwarf Noblemen sitting in the back, making sure they don't take any unnecessary casualties. We will be holding on to them until the late game, just so they can buff up our troops' morale, should that be an issue, which it rarely is in 3rd Age for the Dwarves. Great shots going into those heavy goblin crossbowmen, killed about half that unit with our own iron crossbowmen, but the Blacklock engineers have taken a lot of casualties. One of the good things about the iron crossbows, besides having very high armor in general for a dwarf unit, or for any unit in particular rather, is that they have shields on their back, so they can actually, they're kind of like Pravi's crossbowmen. When they turn around to reload, they actually get a shield block chance, which is a really big deal in a skirmish fight and allows you to take some skirmish fights against something like elves that you normally wouldn't expect to be able to beat, but you can actually do all right in a skirmish fight with them. Vault Warden's moving up now, and Sin is getting shredded on this side from above. Those crossbows have just unleashed so much hell into the back of his formation, and this was probably one of the best tactics our enemy used in the entire game, having those crossbowmen above, firing into the rear of all of these dwarf units. Even the Sons of the Fallen, the ones with shields, are not getting their shield block chance because they're getting shot in the back. So, bunch of casualties on this side. Sin sent in many melee troops over here, maybe committed too much to melee, and is getting punished very heavily for it. He has pushed them back. He will be able to break through, but at what cost? He has lost so many men, so many dwarves so far, and look at this line of sight. Absolutely brutal. A couple of them are about to hit the cliff, but the majority of them will just slam directly into the rear of those dwarven units. And you will see a bunch of those models drop. Things are getting a little bit scary for us. We were expecting to dominate this melee engagement, even against the elite troops of the Orcs in the Misty Mountains with Balin's Guard in melee. With all of these elite troops, we thought we'd just be able to cut through the Black Mountain Orcs, no problem. But those crossbows have racked up hundreds of kills, literally. And when you've only got 4,000 men or 6,000 men on the field, and we've already lost many more than that, losing hundreds at this point in the battle is going to even it out for them and make it a lot closer than we were expecting once we got in these kind of choke pointy fights, which normally favor the dwarves very heavily. Like I've said, we've gotten worn down. The attrition is definitely taking its toll. And all of these Iron Guard and the guards of Khazad-dûm and our elite troops are tired and beginning to break apart. Gonna speed it up just a little bit here because there's much more left for this battle. Lots more to watch. But once we push through these Black Mountain Urks and kill the general, that is one interesting thing I can talk about right now. There's an enemy general in every single room left in this siege battle. I am engaging right now on this side. I am engaging one of their generals, and then there's another one in the room above, and there's another one in the throne hall at the end of the map. So in each room, there will be an orc general, an orc boss that we will have to cut our way through to progress to the next stage of the battle. Sons of the Fallen have finally broken through. Look at the dead. More burned dwarfs. So many. This is beginning to feel exactly like the Battle of Dimral Dale. And things are even starting to shift in the Orcs' favor. Balance bar is actually shifted a little bit towards the blue side. They are actually starting to take a little bit of a lead here. We have lost so many of our troops so far and still stuck at these grindy choke points, still trying to break through the Black Mountain Orcs, and they're having none of it. So much sustain, so much killing power in those troops. Even outnumbering them, we're having a lot of trouble getting through. But this is finally where we can start committing everything, because if we can finally get through this part of the battle, we can begin the final stages of the assault. So as the surge of bodies moves inexorably into the orc lines, the orcs in the back cry, "Forward!" And the orcs in the front cry, "Back!" I mean, that's basically what we got right now. We've got a Leonidas and the 300 Spartans shield wall. We've got those Vault Wardens who are ripping stuff up. The Iron Guard shield wall is doing work as well. And we are going to be able to break through because these dwarfs are pissed and they're coming for blood. Look at that orc line. It just keeps getting pushed further and further back. And soon we're going to be able to break through it all. And once that happens and we ascend this final set of stairs, we will then begin the push towards the final throne room. Sin of the Dark Cloud has finally broken through on that side, but he's going to hold off a little bit longer until we've broken through and killed the orc bodyguard there. We've got goblin halberds, we've got the Black Mountain Orcs, snow trolls, cave trolls, and around the corner some pikemen who are going to be holding the entrance to the throne room, and some more Black Mountain Orcs. Fighting those will be a nightmare in the late game because they will be completely fresh, and literally every single one of our troops will be exhausted at that point in the battle. But we've still got ways to go. We've still got to kill thousands more before we even get to that point. That's what happens in an hour and 15-minute long siege battle. You've got to kill a lot of troops, and we have lost so many so far. It's not guaranteed we're even going to be able to make it to the throne room. The Orc bodyguard is surrounded, getting cut to pieces, and with that, pretty soon here, should be able to kill the general. Morale not going to be... Well, actually, no, let me rephrase that. There is no capture point on this map, as I mentioned earlier, which means morale for the Orcs and Goblins is actually a big deal, because they can't rally at their central plaza. They will route through our troops to the closest red line, which means back the way we came from, which means they'll have to run through all of our troops. So if a unit routes, it's dead. It'll just run through all of our Iron Guard units and just get ripped apart. This was really funny. I really enjoyed this part. There's a small contingent of Blacklock Engineers and Iron Crossbowmen firing in to some Goblin crossbows and the Goblin halberds, and only a few of them, and they don't seem to have noticed it, and the crossbows are actually going to start taking some shots, kind of meat shield for the Goblin halberds, and they're going to start dropping some models, which was pretty cool to see. I always love it when you see like 1 or 2 or 5, just a small group of units getting some kills against a big unit. But there, the Orc bodyguard, the general is going to go down, and now the Orc crossbows will send back some fire. But we've got an even bigger unit now coming in to reinforce, firing in, and this heavy Goblin crossbow, do not envy them whatsoever, because after a couple more volleys, they are going to drop to the earth dead with a bunch of darts in their face. Oh yeah, that is brutal stuff right there. Love seeing those puffs of blood. Don't know why, but 3rd Age does seem to have more blood. Same with Warhammer, I guess. It just seems to have a lot more blood than Medieval 2 does. Like the actual color scheme, when they change, when they start getting bloody, they seem to get way more bloody than they do in Vanilla Medieval 2. But I could be wrong about it. To be honest, it's been a while since I played Vanilla Medieval 2. But it does seem like 3rd Age and Call of Warhammer are bloodier mods for sure. The Blacklock Engineers are going to go into melee and murder just a handful of those Black Mountain Orcs, and then we will begin our final assault. So just a little cut there to get the setup of troops out of the way. Nothing really happened there, you didn't miss anything. The Mountain Orc Berserkers are crossing the bridge of Khazad-dûm, and I have my Iron Crossbowmen over here in one of the throne rooms, and this little guy is going to try to hold up the entire Berserker formation. Don't know how well that's going to go for him. Apparently not very well, because he's going to get slaughtered by a bunch of naked orcs. Not a good way to go, but that is going to give my crossbows time to set up and get a volley off. So this could be devastating. Very low armor, in fact, pretty much no armor on these Mountain Orc Berserkers. And with a perfect volley, oh, that was gorgeous. Look at all those puffs of blood fountaining into the air there. They dropped about 20 dudes in their unit. Really nice shot there from the crossbows. We'll see if it's worth it, though, because I'm slow. Dwarves are very slow. I'm trying to pull away, and the dwarf noblemen are going to rally to try to keep them in the fight and charge downhill. But because they're tired, they're moving very slowly as well. And that is going to give the Mountain Orc Berserkers some time to cut up the Iron Crossbowmen. So maybe not worth it, because I think in the late game that the Iron Crossbows will be a more important unit than the Mountain Orc Berserkers, because in these halls where you're forced to fight dwarf shields from the front, I just can't imagine the Orc Berserkers are going to be particularly useful. Yeah, they do a lot of damage, but when they're getting shot by crossbows, when they're attacking shield wall or vault wardens from the front, not going to go very well for them. So that might not have been worth it, because I lost about 15 or 20 in my Iron Crossbows, but seeing that volley was definitely worth it. And now here come the final Dwarven assault. We've got ways to go still in this replay. If you're still in it, thank you for watching. I really appreciate you still sticking around. I hope you found this battle entertaining so far. I assume some of you will skip around just because it's an incredibly long battle, and I wouldn't really expect anybody to watch an entire hour and 10-minute long replay. But for those of you who have watched the whole thing, thank you very much. That's awesome. But so what we're gonna see now is the dwarf noblemen fighting these mountain orc berserkers on the downslope, which should be a good engagement for them, especially backed up by the iron crossbows and that final assault from the halberds trying to push through to the throne room. We've got so much more left in this battle, and I'm telling you, the ending is crazy. So definitely stick around if you want to watch that, because there's going to be some crazy stuff here at the end. But before we get to that point, we've got to cut through still a couple thousand more elite Orcs and Orcs. And this engagement should go well for us on the downslope. Just with our heavy armor, even though we're tired, we're going to be able to cut through this very lowly armored unit pretty quick. This engagement is just crazy. So many dead so far, and they're going to rout, and watch them rout towards the closest red line, and that means through us. Through Vault Wardens, through Iron Guard, they're going to get slaughtered. And that was a beautiful sight to behold. So yeah, I have said that Mountain Orc Berserkers are kind of more elite. They're not really, they're more mid-tier, but they have great damage. Like I said in the last replay, they're a very killy unit. If you can flank around and get a rear charge off with them, that will do tons of damage. But can't expect them to take on dwarf shield walls from the front. They got destroyed. And now the snow trolls are about to get committed. Another late game shock troop that could put the hurt on us, and we're out of axe thrower ammunition at this point. We've only got iron crossbows, and if we fire into the trolls from the angles our crossbows are at right now, could do a bunch of friendly fire. We'd be shooting into the back of our own troops, hitting them where they don't have a shield block chance. That could probably do more damage to us than it would to the trolls. So we're going to continue firing on the halberds and the units that are engaging us from the front, and probably not shoot at the trolls too much, just because of how much friendly fire our crossbows could do. They probably cut through dwarf armor better than any, except maybe the Black Mountain Orcs and the wargs themselves, and of course the snow trolls, better than any of the halberd or goblin units still left on the field. Now the goblin units that are still alive are all elite as well. They're the heavy goblin variants, heavy goblin halberds, the heavy goblin infantry. Those won't be necessarily easy to cut through either. We're making our stand here as even more orcs stream down from below, crossing the bridge of Khazad-dûm, trying desperately to push us back. And it has been so difficult to get a foothold in Moria, but we're finally starting to do it. We can see the light of day, just a little bit more of a push. But even after we've killed all these orcs in these choke points, there are still Bolg's champions and still trolls to deal with. And as we see the numerous dead, we continue to push through, and at every single choke point, just piles and piles of bodies. There will be no underground burials for these unless we leave them where they lay. I think it's going to have to be funeral pyres again, just like what happened after the Battle of Dimril Dale. When you lose more than half of your army and the battle's not even complete yet, things are going very, very bad for you. This is more catastrophic, this is more Pyrrhic than any battle in Lord of the Rings lore that I can think of. It's pretty disastrous for both sides right now. This is a grinded out melee fest to the death. Just a straight up death match. And we'll see who can fatality the other first. Strike that killing blow here at the end. And now more goblins from the throne room are joining the melee. You can see them streaming out of the throne room right now to reinforce those Black Mountain Orcs and the goblin halberds who have been holding that choke point so well and still in reserve. We've got those Orc Mountain Pikes, we've got the Black Mountain Orcs, and they've still got Bolg's champions, which are a monstrous, multiple HP cavalry unit with devastating melee stats. So we're going to have to be very careful and keep close tabs on that cav unit. Make sure it doesn't get in behind us, because if it does, it could cause some serious carnage. And look at these shield walls go at each other. And looks like Miles Davis has cleaned up over on this side, leaving many broken and dead bodies, but some of our own as well on the slope. So across the bridge of Khazad-dûm, we'll have to keep an eye out and see if anything else comes that way. Both champions might, and if they do, we'll need a phalanx or some kind of spear wall to deal with them. Because if we just send an iron guard or a regular shield wall unit, we could be in serious trouble, because wargs can flatten them. And even spear walls from the front Bulk champions with multiple HP can charge into them and get through them and do a lot of damage. So we've got to be very careful. The shield wall is still pushing through. Push! Is that the best you can do? They're pushing through, and I think we're going to be able to break them here, but I don't know if we'll be able to actually break them. Even the orc morale at this point is really good. I don't know if it's because of Bulk champions or just they've just gotten leadership buffs in general in this mod. Again, it is balanced out for multiplayer, so they probably did get morale buffs so that it's more fair. Because again, when you have the same amount of gold in regular Third Age, elves and Dale and other factions have a big advantage. But in this mod, in a regular multiplayer match, morale and stats are much more similar, just to be more fair. Of course, dwarves are still going to beat up goblins head-to-head, that kind of thing. But of course, goblin troops will be much cheaper, and they will perform much better than they do in vanilla Third Age. So we are finally breaking through. You can see that wall is starting to collapse. Oh, and they just routed. They just routed, and now we're going to slaughter them as they charge through. And look at this. We are 50 minutes into the battle, and the balance bar is still dead even. There's been almost no shift of it whatsoever throughout the entire battle. Absolutely insane so far. Incredibly close. And now, at this point, there are only a couple hundred left on each side. Couple hundred dwarves and a couple hundred orcs and goblins. Now, when I say a couple hundred orcs and goblins, that does mean that they're elite troops, though. There aren't just like a couple hundred low-tier goblin infantry. We're talking about the Black Mountain Orcs, we're talking about the Pikes, we're talking about Bulk's champions. So this last engagement is going to be tough because we've lost the vast majority of our melee troops. Look at this. We've got almost all iron crossbows left. We do have ammunition on them, which is good, but we've just got Vault Wardens and like a couple units of those, a couple Iron Guard, the remnants of the Dragon Slayers, and a couple other units. But there's really just not very much left for either side. So expending our ammunition here is going to be very important, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get my iron crossbows up and begin firing into the throne room. Black Mountain Orcs are behind those pillars, and KuroGuroChan is actually going to move a little bit slowly here and not pull behind some cover, and I'm going to get 2 full volleys into the flank of the Black Mountain Orcs, and every single kill at this point in the battle is a really big deal. So being able to get those shots in was really nice, and I'm going to take about 15 models off of that unit. I don't know what other people would call it. I mean, I know that models is a Warhammer thing, don't get me wrong, but they're also models in-game, so I know some people might make fun of me for saying models, but it does make sense. Like, you can't say unit, because unit is the entire contingent of a group of troops. And unit doesn't refer, at least in my opinion, doesn't refer to a single entity, but I don't know. It doesn't really matter. The Axe Throwers of Khazad-dûm are in there, and they actually just got a kill with one of those throwing axes. This was fun to watch too. I think that might be Sin's only remaining unit. He's just got 2 and maybe like 1 Vault Warden left. Like literally 1 dude in a unit of Vault Wardens, and I think he's got these 2 Axe Throwers, and that's it. And that's because he took so much damage at those stairs from the crossbows from above, shooting into their rear. And those Axe Throwers are actually doing a little bit of damage here, which is always fun to see. Like I said, really like seeing individual models do some damage at the end of games. But here come the Black Mountain Orcs charging up the center, and I will have to commit my iron crossbows to tie them down and make sure they don't get at my unit that has a lot of ammunition left. So I'll pull that one back, and this depleted iron crossbow will get thrown to the wolves, and Black Mountain Orcs are going to eviscerate them in melee. That is not going to be a close engagement. Iron crossbows can hold out decently well in melee. They'll hold for a bit here, but they will not get very many kills. They will definitely get slaughtered. At the same time, Bulk's champions are lurking in the back and thinking about doing something a little bit sneaky. But first, the Black Mountain Orcs are carving through, just slaying everything, and here come some Dwarven Noblemen, some Iron Guard, the remnants of the Dwarf Halberdiers, and the Vault Wardens. Everything we have left that can fight in melee needs to get committed right now, or we're in serious trouble. If those Black Mountain Orcs somehow manage to pull through in this little engagement here and get at my iron crossbows, that could be the game. So the crossbows are firing in, but again, they're arcing the shots over, so they're losing a lot of their killing power. If you can fire directly into a unit, you'll do much more damage. And you're seeing some sword kill animations with the axes, which is always funny. But those Black Mountain Orcs are doing work as the Halberdier spear wall moves forward and the lines clash. And this is getting so epic and so close. I mean, it's been epic for a long time now, at least in my opinion. And the halberds are going to begin trying to scythe through, but Black Mountain Orcs are even superior to the Halberdiers. Halberdiers are actually kind of a low-tier troop for the Dwarves, and so the Orcs should be able to cut through them as well. We'll see, though. The fact that we're tired in the late game changes everything. That's a fresh Black Mountain Orc, which changes things dramatically. Where'd Bolg's champions go? They're being sneaky. They are pulling around the side, about to cross the bridge of Khazad-dûm and try to get into our rear. And that could lead to some serious problems. So we don't have very many melee troops left, as you saw. We have almost no Vault Wardens left, which are by far the best unit we have for dealing with cavalry. Halberdiers would do well also, but they're all committed on the front lines against the Black Orcs. You can see these very angry, pissed off wolves are getting ready to charge in from the flank. Let's see what kind of damage they can do. Sin's got that one Vault Warden there holding down the choke point by himself. We'll see what that can do. But these Vault Wardens are the only thing we have protecting our squishy skirmishers. And we are stuck between, just like last battle, just like the Orcs were, we are now stuck between a rock and a hard place. And it's looking like the Orcs in the Misty Mountains might be able to get their revenge for the Iron Hills, because they have us surrounded and we are beset on all sides, trying desperately to survive as the Orcs push through, scythe through our halberdiers. Will they be able to break through and get into our iron crossbowmen? And if they do, will our crossbowmen be able to survive in melee? Just a handful of dwarf nobles left. My general is still alive, but this is getting absolutely insane here in the late game. As I take a drink of water because my throat is very sore after commentating this for an hour. Pixelated Apollo does this all the time, but he and I don't really have the same commentating styles, and I'm sure he still gets very tired when he commentates the way he does. I'm certainly getting a little bit tired, but I'm so excited and hyped about this match, I don't even really care. We are about to get an insane ending. Wargs getting ready to charge in. Could they deal with those spear walls from the front? I don't know. We'll see. There are not very many Vault Wardens left. I think Wargs could probably charge those and be okay with multiple HP. They wouldn't get skewered and just instantly die, as you'd see from 1 HP cavalry. And looks like one of the Dwarf generals just went down. That is not good for the Dwarves. I mean, again, morale's not the biggest issue for them. But if a warg charge comes in, at the same time you lose your gen, and you get completely surrounded, there could be some kind of mass rout here. So we'll see. Our melee line is looking so thin now. Halberdiers continuously getting pushed back, and the Goblin Halberds and the Black Mountain Orcs have just made such an impact here in the late game because they were fresh troops. And the Reclaimers of Khazad-dûm are still in melee, still trying to hold it down, but we are getting outnumbered, and our crossbows have horrible lines of sight. Things are looking awful now. Balance War is even, but if the Black Mountain Orcs get into our crossbows and silence them, this game is over. So there has to be something we do to pull this out of the hat. And we'll see if Bolg's champions decide to make a move here. That's a risky engagement because I don't think any of us know exactly how well a warg will do against the spear wall from the front. A charge could do so much damage, but at the same time, charging into a phalanx is not the best idea. But they're actually moving right now, just maybe so that... Actually, yeah, I told Miles Davis at this point, I was like, move your spear walls a little bit further up so that my crossbows have more room to fire in to the blob that is now pushing through our dwarf melee units. The problem with that is that will then gives both champions a time to attack and charge downhill. Miles didn't move quite far enough uphill. He didn't get back on the flat, and now that means downhill charge, and that means skewering a bunch of our Vault Wardens. Look at both those units just melt to that charge from the wargs. They did lose a couple of models there, lost a couple of their wolves, but they just destroyed almost 2 units of depleted Vault Wardens. So that was probably worth it for them. One more charge and they could get at our iron crossbows. But now we have our iron crossbows turning to fire at the threat. I did do some HP damage there. Got a good volley into the front of those wargs. So we'll see if that pays off as this game progresses. But man, this is getting absolutely insane. Here they come again. These shots right now not doing very well. They're arcing over. Really want them to just go directly into the wargs. And they're coming in for the charge. But charges can be a little bit wonky in Medieval 2, as you know, inside a city or inside these kind of thin choke points. And so that was not a very devastating charge from the wargs. He needs to pull those out and charge again. If I can get one more volley here, could do a lot of damage. As KuroGuroChan tries to pull out a melee. I'm not going to get a volley. Actually, no, I'm going to get a volley right now. Ooh, dropped a couple models there. That was good. 3 or 4 more go down as they run over the dead bodies of their comrades. And iron crossbows is pretty much all we have left. Just about 30 reclaimers of Khazad-dûm, and that's it. And then the rest iron crossbows pretty much. Not running out of ammunition, still have ammo, but this is just getting ridiculous at this point. I can honestly say I've never seen anything like this before in a replay or in a battle that I played. Of course, I was playing in this battle, but being stuck in a corner, being literally beset on all sides and trying to hold it down when you're getting attacked from multiple angles. Crossbow is just trying to survive, and now we have another problem coming in now. The pikes are coming in from the other side alongside Bolg's champions, which means if they break through, because we've had to commit all of our melee troops pretty much to deal with the Orcs over on this side of the field. And we are actually doing okay now. Our crossbows got committed to melee. We actually managed to break them. They're about to waver. They're about to shatter, and that means they're going to shatter through all of us and kill us. So the iron crossbows are actually going to hold the line here and break these units. So that's a big deal. That's actually a really big deal, because the problem we had was we had to commit all of our melee troops over to this side pretty much, and then only send like a token force to deal with the wargs. But now we can commit a little bit more to the wargs over there. I was thinking about sending everything to the plaza, but then I remembered there's no capture point. So the safest place by far on the map for us is in that corner, where we're kind of beset on both sides, but where the wargs can't get a great charge off. If we move into the throne room, that gives Bolg's champions much more chances to get big charges off, get that full charge bonus. So I'm going to think better of it after my allies Sim the Dark Cloud and Miles Davis tell me just pull back, and I'm going to sit in the corner and hope that our crossbows will somehow be able to beat back a warg unit and a pike unit in melee. But that halberd and the Black Mountain Orcs are now gone from the field. So the crossbows actually ended up doing okay in melee after our Khazad-dûm reclaimers managed to wear them down, which was a surprise, but definitely a nice one for sure. So we're going to have one iron crossbow fire into the pikes. They'll have a beautiful firing angle from this angle right here. And then the other one, I'm going to kind of deploy diagonally across the whole pathway, and that will hopefully mitigate the charge bonus of the wargs as they come in. Balance bar shifting a little bit in our favor, but we're going to need some devastating shots into those wargs if we want to win this game, because remember, it's a cavalry unit. If it gets good charge bonuses off, 2 or 3 of them could obliterate an entire unit of crossbows, and if that happens, we lose. Point blank shots going directly in to the Mountain Orc pikes. Really good volleys going in right now. That's important. That could shift things more in our favor if they're able to continue doing that. But the pikes are going to shred our melee troops over there. They're fresh and they're pikes. So our melee troops can try to wade into combat, but at being exhausted, there's not much hope of them winning over there. So they'll need that crossbow support if you want any hope of winning that engagement. And again, we're stuck in the exact same spot. Multiple threats coming from multiple sides. Here come the wargs. Can they turn this in the Orcs of the Misty Mountains' favor? Big charge coming in from the wargs. But you can see that the charge was a little bit mitigated there because of the way I've deployed my troops. They aren't able to get their full charge bonus, but if they're able to pull through and get into the back of these Khazad-dûm Reclaimers, suddenly they could just end us here. Because after our melee troops are gone, our crossbows are not going to be able to beat back wargs. We need something to tie them down. Wargs coming in to charge again, and we are finally into the late game, folks. We are finally in to the last stand of the dwarves as they try to retake their homeland, retake the depths of Khazad-dûm. Wargs coming in. Oh, and this time it was a big charge. Lost a couple of their wargs, but killed even more crossbows, and the entire hallway is just getting choked with the dead. Look how many bodies are just piled up on top of each other, and the wargs are causing a lot of carnage over there. Guardians of Khazad-dûm just getting worn down over and over again by those pikes, but our crossbows are also reaping a terrible toll from the front, getting some fantastic volleys off into the front. And remember, they don't have shields, so they definitely take a lot of losses to that kind of fire. But this crossbow unit is looking very raggedy at this point, and with another charge from the wargs, that could be sayonara for them, and that would only leave me with one crossbow unit left. Volley's coming in now. Oh, dropped a couple of wargs. Oh, and it actually stopped their charge there. Oh, if I was KuroGuroChan, I'd be pissed right now. Oh, but he's going to surge forward. He's going to surge forward, pull through the crossbows, and go for a hammer and anvil on the other side, and tie up all the crossbows at the same time. Will they be able to prevent these crossbows from firing? It's going to be really important. If they fire point blank into these wolf riders, that could be devastating in the late game. Charge coming in. That might rout the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers, and the pikes, if they surge forward, might be able to just hammer and anvil them, completely destroy them. And the wargs are tying up these crossbows. They're not firing, but I put them in guard mode, so I should be able to start shooting again relatively soon if he doesn't get more of the unit to tie them up. Let's see how this goes down. They're reforming. They might... Oh, they're turning to fire. If they get a point-blank volley into these wargs, that could be almost game. With the multiple HP they've lost so far. Oh, he's trying to pull into them. And they're going to actually shoot. They're shooting. And they're going to drop a bunch of models off the wargs. 2, 3, 4 of them going down. Oh, 5. Man, that was devastating. That is not good. Bulge champions do not want to be losing that many this late. Oh. Oh, no. And the wargs can't pull out very easily without taking more HP damage from melee. They're still getting shot. That was really bad for the Orcs in the Misty Mountains. That was really, really bad for them. They needed those wargs at full strength to get those charge bonuses in. It's not over yet, but that was devastating. That really hurt their chances. Pikes are pushing through. They've murdered pretty much everything over there. But more shots coming in, doing even more damage to the pikes, is going to pretty much end their usefulness as a unit in a couple more volleys. Oh, that was insane. Wargs coming in for a final charge. Will it be enough? They're coming in now. Will they get their full charge? That was their full charge. And it's just not going to be enough. It is not going to be enough. As they charge in, they're not losing anything really, but with only 9 or 10 models left, can't really be expected to carry this game anymore. There are almost no pikes left. The iron crossbows can probably beat them off. Beat them off. Didn't mean to say that. Destroy them in melee. And then once that happens, the wargs won't be able to carry this game. Let's see if a charge can finally do the damage they're supposed to do. But the hallway just choked with the blood of the dead and all these bodies. It wasn't enough. They charge in. They're losing even more wolves. And that is pretty much going to be your game as a bunch of bolts do a bit of friendly fire here. They can cycle charge the rest of the game. They're not going to be able to carry it. The iron crossbows will Take it. Oh, man. What an exhausting and crazy and entertaining and absolutely insane ending to a battle. Think about it. 6,000 dwarves, 16,000 goblins and orcs and trolls as the general goes down and he gets thrown into the air and hangs there. Just kind of hanging out. But with all those troops on the field, 22,000 troops on the field. And it comes down to 80, 85 iron crossbowmen. And that is the difference. Less than 1% of my army remaining, and that is the end of the game. Less than 1% of our collective armies remaining. Look at the stats. I had 6,000 kills. Sin had 3,000, and Miles Davis had about 4,500. And then we look at the kills on the other side, 2,200, 1,200, 800, and 900. And Dwarven Nobleman doing alright. We can see the kills here. Dragon Slayer is doing okay. Sin's army actually didn't do that well because he got the brunt of that crossbowman fire from the top. He really got destroyed in that engagement near the stairs. And my stuff did work. I got so many kills this battle, like 6,500 kills. Vault Warden's 832, but that is all on like really cheap, crappy goblins. But that's an insane stat for a low-tier Dwarven unit. But that is the battle. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Indie Pride, signing out.